Hello, everybody. All right, welcome to the Mikestand. Today is, of course, Monday, July the 7th, 2025. I hope everybody had a good holiday weekend here. I hope everybody was safe and sane with their fireworks. So let's see now. As usual, we're going to give it a few minutes, give people a chance to come in. Of course, a friendly reminder to everybody, if you guys haven't already, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage, that'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So, as I said, we're going to give people a couple minutes here before we get started. Of course, today, when, started watching some of the cartoons that came out in September of 1938, including Betty Boop cartoon, a couple of new Universal cartoons from, of course, this was all of course, those cartoons were pre-Woody Woodpecker and all that. So let me see if I can kind of stir up some more people there. All right. So anyway, saw a Crazy Cat cartoon. So a lot of some of the black and white, some of it color. Including, of course, Oh, let's see now. So at 2:18, so a few more minutes, or a few more seconds rather. So, anyways, well, I might as well just go ahead and. So here's what's on tap for tonight. So I got like 3 quick stories to go through. One from Bleeding Fool, the other 2 from Me TV Tunes. They're gonna. IDW is apparently coming out with a comic adaptation of the Twilight Zone, so that's something to take a quick peek at. Also, Me TV Tunes is planning a little Smurfette celebration this Sunday, as they're going to be, aside from their normal 2 o'clock time spot, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 Pacific time spot, they're going to run a couple hours starting at 1, usually taken by the Flintstones, family specials spot. That hour plus the full hour, so from 4 to 6 Eastern, 1 to 3 Pacific. They're going to do a little Smurfette celebration in which they're going to feature Smurf episodes featuring. This is, of course, back in the original Hanna-Barbera Smurfs cartoon, voiced, of course, by the late great Lucille Bliss. And then we will also look at how Bradley Cooper was apparently inspired by Bugs Bunny. That's something So those 3 articles, plus we got quite a bit in the wrestling wrap-up, as, of course, we'll look back over the weekend's activities from, of course, Friday Night SmackDown, Saturday's AEW Collision, look ahead to tonight's Raw, which will be the go-home Raw to this weekend. We'll also just go real quickly over, as this coming weekend, of course, you got Ring of Honor, AEW, and WWE doing big shows with, of course, Ring of Honor having the Supercard on Friday night. Then on Saturday, AEW will, of course, be having its All-In pay-per-view, and, of course, being counter-programmed by the WWE's NXT Great American Bash, and then Saturday night's main event. Then on Sunday, WWE will be doing their Evolution pay-per-view. So WE stuff is going on in Atlanta, Georgia. The Ring of Honor AEW stuff is going on in Texas. So, and then we'll wrap things up with, of course, this day in each history. So, with all that being said, why don't we go ahead and get started then on the material here. So, just pull up the article here, and then we will get started. So the first article we're going to do, as I said, we got 3 pretty much quickies that didn't take that much. All right, so nothing too big here. I know my guess is Avi might have 1 or 2 things to really say, but this is, I don't think, going to be that controversial per se. But IDW produces a comic adaptation of Twilight Zone. Article by Avi Green, published July 5th, which is past Saturday. They had a big eyeball to over his right shoulder. That's Rod Sterling right there from the original. But look at some of the stuff there. So, Entertainment Weekly announced IDW, in their latest attempt to stay relevant, is adapting Rod Sterling's classic TV anthology, The Twilight Zone, to the comic medium. And this from the Entertainment Weekly article. Back in October, indie publisher IDW announced a collaboration with Paramount to launch a new imprint through IDW Dark. Through IDW Dark, some of the Hollywood studios' horror franchises will now enter the comic book space. Entertainment Weekly can exclusively reveal one of the first projects from this partnership. Now, granted, this is something that comic book companies have been doing, almost dating all the way back to the very beginning, where, it used to be Dell would usually do it, Dell, and eventually Gold Key would do it, where they would, they'd adapt some of the cartoon, you had kind of the connection between the classic cartoon and comic, like some of them went from comic to cartoon, like Popeye, for example, went from, Thimble Theater comics to being the cartoon being produced by the Fleischer Studios. He had it the other way too. Had a number of cartoons like Bosco and Looney Tunes and Woody Woodpecker and all that. They all got their own comic adaptations, but now we're seeing that. Okay, so the Twilight Zone is getting an anthology comic series that will be rendered in black and white as a nod to the original TV show that captivated viewers in the late 1950s and early 1960s. While there are plans for additional issues in the future, the initial order consists of 5 issues. Each will be a complete standalone tale from various storytellers. Now here's Avi's response to what we just read there. I'm sure Twilight Zone wasn't the most violent horror series of its time, but that doesn't make this any more production to celebrate. Well, it wasn't. Okay, the thing I believe, the thing that drew a lot of fans to the Twilight Zone is that they used suspense more to get the horror out there. A lot of it was more suspense and psychological thriller type horror than like blood and gore and gruesome horror, So, especially not if there's more horror franchises on the way from this same publisher. There's surely all sorts of comedy concepts and optimistic fantasy novels from past decades that could be adapted to comics too. And all we hear about are these horror stories being adapted. Sorry, but this is another tired cliche we don't need here. Well, all right, this is where I kind of have to somewhat disagree with Avion, because in this particular case, I think there are people. I mean, as long as they stay true to the original show and they don't try to modernize it or, well, not just modernize, but like particularly putting the more woke aspects of today's world into it. That they basically keep to the formula of the original show, they should be fine. They're you know, Avi may not be somebody who's into a lot of the more darker side stuff, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there aren't people out there who are into it. Again, Twilight Zone, as he even stated, was not one of the more like violent, gory type horror series. It was more suspense, psychological thriller. Okay, it was more about driving people insane rather than going up and hack them. So I think as long as they don't politicize it, as long as they don't like sit there and try to like use the comic like they've been doing the last 5-6 years to to kind of lecture people or try to preach to people, I think it should do fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with putting horror comic out there, because there obviously are people who are into that. Avi may not be one of them, but but to each his own. But as the saying goes, to each his own, right? But if a product with a more optimistic view is ever adapted, we must hope they don't intend to apply a PC approach to how it's written up. Brightness can't be held hostage to woke dictates. Something else that, if you know where to look, the industry's guilty of doing in the past decade, which is true. Again, though, whether it's a comic being published from quote unquote the bright side of things or from the dark side of things, there are markets for them, And the one thing I do agree with the statement here, as long as they don't sit there and take a PC approach to it, because that will, taking that, as we've learned, as he said in the past decade here, that PC approach is what's turning people away from American comics to begin with. So I don't agree with him that, we just shouldn't make any, and again, not that I'm not necessarily somebody who's a big person to be into like a whole bunch of horror comics either. Okay. But obviously there are people out there who do have that taste and want that kind of, and in the case of Twilight Zone, it's not it's more, as I said, suspense and psychological thriller type horror as opposed to, blood and gore type horror. So that's something to take more into consideration. Anyways, so as I said, these articles are going to be pretty quick tonight. Anyways, let's get ready to move on to the next article here. MeTV Tunes. We may even do. There's another Smurf one here too. Smurfs around the world. So may even do that one depending on how we're doing on time here. All right, so might even get another one thrown in there because I guess one was added since I. But anyway, let's get to the MeTV articles here. So here's the first one here. Join MeTV Tunes Smurfette celebration. A Smurftastic Sunday is in store. July 7th, article published today at 12 noon by MeTV Tunes staff. All right, so here we go. It's a big Smurf summer here at MeTV Tunes, and we are going all out and celebrating our favorite Smurf, Smurfette. The Smurfs may be an ensemble show with over 100 Smurfs, but Smurfette has always stood out as the main character. Now, of course, partly because for the majority of the show up until the introduction of Sassette, she was the only female Smurf. Now, granted, since this was basically a kid's show, we never exactly found out just how there came to be 100 Smurfs. Well, I think they even did late in the season, not just Sassette. I think they even introduced a grandma Smurf too, or a nanny Smurf as well. So, but there was Papa Smurf, and then there were all the other, Smurfs, who were, based on their personality and their abilities. You of course had Brainy Smurf, Hefty Smurf, Handy Smurf, Jokey Smurf, Grouchy, Lazy, Greedy, But Smurfette being the only female Smurf for much of the series, you had a lot, you didn't really have any like major like mating situations, like dating or basically Smurfette was the lone female of the village, so basically all the guys went gaga over Smurfette, but it never got past just, oh, I love Smurfette, because it was a kid's show, obviously. It was more crush type, romance. What's your favorite Australian dentist? I don't have a favorite Australian dentist because I'm not even in Australia. So I couldn't answer that one really because I don't have one. I don't live in Australia. I live in America. I live in the United States. So, and even if you were to ask me what my favorite U.S. dentist would be, I don't necessarily have one of those either. Just a dentist is a dentist. So, anyways, getting back to the article here. Let's see. She's smart, loving, brave, and Smurfy to the core. Smurfette is the big sister to all the Smurfs and the unofficial queen of the village. Well, yes, even though she's the only, I would say Smurfette is probably more like the princess of the village as opposed to a queen. Okay, it's more the other male Smurfs of equitable age, or like I don't think Papa Smurf per se is, trying to chase after her, as it were, trying to romance her or anything like that. It's like, she's like basically Papa Smurf is the father figure, and then all the other Smurfs are just, regular Smurfs, and the Smurfette is in that group. So I wouldn't say she's the queen of the village or unofficial queen of the. I'd say she's more like unofficial princess of the village. So, but anyways, and we think it's high time she got her own special celebration. And I think a lot of fans would be cool with that. Cool with the idea of Smurfette getting a celebration there. Join Me TV Tunes for our Smurfette celebration this Sunday, July 13th, starting at 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 Central, of course, 1 Pacific. We've selected some extra Smurfy episodes about Smurfette. So the Smurfette celebration, July 13th, starting at 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 Central, 1 Pacific. And of course, if you haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So getting back to this. So coming up at 4 p.m., 3 Central, 1 Pacific this Sunday, the Smurfette. We begin with Smurfette's origin story. Gargamel creates her to show division and lure the Smurfs into Gargamel's lair. Luckily, Smurfette finds friends amongst the Smurfs, and realizing that she is Smurfy, too, protects the village from Gargamel. Yeah, so Smurf, and the only Smurf we ever find out how they came to be was Smurfette. Smurfette was basically an artificial Smurf, initially designed by Gargamel to lure the the other Smurfs, the male Smurfs. Basically the idea. Well, he makes a Smurfette to kind of take advantage of the Smurfette's wiles, as it were, to kind of entice the Smurfs to follow her to Gargamel's. So then coming up at 4:30 Eastern, 3:30 Central, 1:30 Pacific, The Good, Bad, and the Smurfy. The Smurfs are captured by the evil wizard Mordain, who forces them to work as jesters for his king. When a spell is put on Papa Smurf, it's up to Smurfette to come up with a plan to escape. Then coming up at 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 Central, 2 Pacific, the normal Smurfs running time on Sundays. Sassette. Finally, Smurfette isn't the only girl Smurf. The Smurflings create Sassette to be Smurfette's sister, but Papa Smurf realizes something's up. Gargamel has put a spell on Sassette to make her explode and destroy the Smurfs. Smurfette and Papa work to save Sassette and adopt her into the village. So now Sassette was created by the Smurflings, of course, who were like Nat Smurfling, who slouchy and snappy. Of course, these were basically the kid Smurfs, right? These were the Smurfs. Initially, I think they were actually, Nat was nature Smurf. I think they were originally adult Smurfs who somehow got magically turned into, younger Smurfs or kid Smurfs, basically. And then we get Sideshow Smurfs coming up at 5:30 Pacific, or 5:30 Eastern, 4:30 Central, 2:30 Pacific. Smurfette and Clumsy are kidnapped by Bombast and forced to perform in his traveling show. Watch the Smurfs on MeTV Tunes, Sundays at 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 Central, 2 Pacific. All right, so there we go with that one. So let's get ready to move on to the next story. All right, so let's see. Get on to the next story here. All right, so here we go with the next story we're going to talk about here. Bugs Bunny was Bradley Cooper's inspiration for Maestro, in quotes there. Chuck Jones would be proud. Article published earlier today at 1:45 p.m. by MeTV Tunes. Now, I think that might be 1:45 Eastern or 1:45 Central, or so. I think it was 1:45 Eastern because I think it was still after that I found that article. So, anyways, here we go. In the 2023 film Maestro, Bradley Cooper delivered a stunning Academy Award-nominated performance as legendary conductor Leonard Bernstein. To play a famous conductor, Cooper spent 6 years training for the role. Wow, 6 years for the role, with top conductors including Gustavo Dudamel and Yannick Nazit-Seguin. He also went into the archives of the Philharmonic Orchestra and studied Bernstein artifacts and performance films. Wow, he really did he did his homework, didn't he? He did his homework, didn't he? Even with all of that preparation, Cooper still fumbled on his first conducting scene, where he was conducting a real orchestra and chorus as Leonard Bernstein. In an interview with Entertainment Weekly, Cooper recalled, quote, "And I'm sitting there talking like Leonard Bernstein, directing them, and they're going like, quote, who is this guy? And in small quotes, he's going to conduct us? And by the way, I messed it up the whole first day," unquote. All the training, preparation, and enthusiasm still led to a fumble day. Well, that's still likely to happen. I mean, sometimes you got to get the kinks out, right? Got to get some of those little kinks out of the system before you can perfect it. Cooper had to go back to square one to remember his first inspiration in the world of conducting, Bugs Bunny. The beloved little wabbit from Looney Tunes has taken up the conductor's baton several times in his cartoon career. Quote, "It started with Tom and Jerry and Bugs Bunny as a kid, watching them conduct," unquote, Cooper said. Bugs Bunny has performed classical music, or in parentheses, or parodies of classical music, parentheses, in some of his most memorable cartoons, like, quote, Rhapsody Rabbit, unquote, quote unquote, Baton Bunny, and Long Haired Hare, and What's Opera Doc. Yeah, What's Opera Doc was a pretty famous one, where he was co-starring with Elmer Fudd in that one, and kill the wabbit, kill the wabbit, kill the wabbit. He was so enthralled by Bugs that he wanted to try conducting as a child. Cooper recalled that he resorted to, quote, asking Santa Claus for a baton when I was about 8 or so, and then just being obsessed with conducting, unquote. Recalling his cartoon conducting origins, Cooper was able to deliver a successful performance, but we still have one burning question. Would Bugs have been thanked if Cooper had won the Oscar? Yeah, because we know how jealous Bugs can be when it comes to that Oscar. So watch Bugs Bunny and Friends on MeTV weekdays at 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central, 6 a.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Pacific. Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 Central, 5 Pacific. And Sundays at 12 noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central, and 9 a.m. Pacific. All right, so we got one more story we're going to do here. Actually, I did... let me see. No, I think I can be all right. Be all right here. All right. So, anyways, one last story here to go, and then we'll move on to the wrestling wrap up. Another Smurf story. Smurfs around the world. Everyone around the world has Smurf fever. article published earlier today at 3:24 p.m. So I'm guessing. All right. People of the world, Smurf up your life. Did you know that the classic 1981 cartoon, The Smurfs, was such a big hit that it was translated into over 55 different languages? I think I did hear something like that. Let's take a look at all the fun ways to say Smurf um, and learn about international versions of the show along the way. Now, let's not forget the Smurfs, or Les Schrumpfs as they were originally called, originally started in was originally a Dutch comic. They are actually originally supporting characters in the Dutch comic Johan and Pee Wee. So, anyways, first off, Basque, Patakiak. According to Google Translation, Patakiak translate to pothole. So in the Basque language, Smurfs were called potholes. German, Die Schlumpf. Well, Die Schlumpf. So the German translation simply means the Smurfs, but the original French name, Les Schrumpf, derives from the German word for sock, Strumpf. So a little reflective phonics here. Let's see. Spanish, pitufos. The Spanish translation occurred when the editor of Strong magazine picked up the comic and needed to translate the made-up word. The editor took a character in Spanish folklore, Patufet, who is usually depicted as a little boy who is as small as a grain of rice. Patufet means Littlefoot in Catalan. So the editor took that name and adapted it into the Smurf equivalent of Pitufos. And of course, speaking of Catalan, Els Barufets. Even though the Spanish version of Smurfs is derived from the Catalan word, Catalan word, Catalan audiences had their own translation of the show. Els Barufets simply translates to the Smurfs. Hebrew, Dardasim. Like the German translation, Dardasim originally meant a slipper or sandal, but because of the popularity of the Smurfs, now the word is almost exclusively used for Smurfs. Dardasim. Hungarian. Hubikek Torpikek. Hubikek Torpikek translates for hooray for Smurfs. Japanese. Now, of course, the first half of that is all in kanji, I believe, but Chisana Mori no se I amu sumafu. Or smafu. The original Japanese title of the show translates to The Little Forest Spirit, I Am Smurf. But the title was then shortened to Morino Smurf or Smurfs in the Forest. The show then underwent a final title change, Smurf, which also translates to Smurf. Vietnamese, Long Chi Trum. Long Chi Trum translates to Smurf Village. But the show has also just been shortened to Chi Trum or Smurf. Uzbek, Meaty Voilar. Meaty Voilar actually translates to dwarfs. Uzbek is not the first language to categorize the Smurfs as another fictional creature. The original English translation called them goblins. The only problem is goblins tend to have more of a darker meaning to them. I don't know if anybody would actually think of if you've ever watched a Smurf. I don't know if anybody would think of them as goblins. So. Dwarves maybe, yeah, that could be. Let's see now. And as I said, if you haven't already, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the streams here, we get some more friendly people to engage, that'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So in Portuguese, it's os estrumfes or os smurfs. In European Portuguese, the Smurfs are called os estrumfes, but in Brazilian Portuguese, they are called os Smurfs. Finnish, Smurfit. Translating from Finnish, the Finland version of the show is titled after one of the best characters, Smurfette. Let's see, translations that mean, so here are some more translations that mean the Smurfs. In Azerbaijani, Schindler, Croatian, Strumfovi, Czech, Smolov, Danish, Smurferny. Now, mind you, again, I never tried to speak any of these, maybe Spanish, French, German are probably the ones I probably have some understanding of, but the rest of these, so I might be pronouncing them I might be off in my translation, so I know I should have probably said that at the very beginning, but anyways, Dutch, De Smurfen, Estonian, Smurfid, Greek, Fakia, Icelandic, Strumpamir, Italian Puffy, Kurdish, Siok, Lithuanian, Smurfai, or Smurfay, Norwegian, Smurfine, Smurfy in Polish. Let's see, Strumfil in Romanian. In Russian, Smurfik. Serbian, Stromfovi. So I think there's another small, let's see, in Slavic, Smolkovia. Slovenian, Smirked. Swedish, Smurfarma. In Syrinler in Turkish. And again, watch the Smurfs on MeTV Sundays at 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 Central, 2 Pacific. Alrighty then. So that's all we got on the news articles tonight. So, so now we're going to move on to the wrestling wrap up here. We do have quite a bit to go over there. So we'll try to see what we can do about that. So first off, of course, we're going to go back to Friday Night SmackDown. As, of course, WWE is preparing for this upcoming weekend's events of the NXT show. The NXT show. You you got NXT Great American Bash and Saturday Night's Main Event on Saturday, and then Evolution on Sunday. Of course, we'll look at the Friday Night SmackDown here, and look ahead to tonight's Monday Night Raw before, of course, before going to yeah, that's right. Okay, so from this past Friday Night SmackDown, which was, of course, recorded last Monday, which aired on USA Network, Wade Barrett and Joe Testatora on commentary. In a number one contendership triple threat match to see who would next compete for the WWE Women's World Tag Team titles, Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair defeated B-Fab and Michin and the Secret Herverse of Alba Fire and Piper Niven, with, of course, Chelsea Green trying to get involved, but getting knocked off the apron by Charlotte Flair. So now they'll be the next ones to challenge for the WWE Women's Tag Team titles. In an 8-man tag match, the Wyatt 6 members of Joe Gacy, Dexter Lumis, Eric Rowan, and Uncle Howdy, Nikki Cross in the corner, defeated Berto, Johnny Gargano, Montez Ford, and Chris Sabin, half of the 4 other tag teams that they're feuding with over the WWE tag team titles. Andrade and Ray Fennick continue their tag team success here, defeating the recently called up Fraxium of Axiom and Nathan Frazier. And the main event saw Jacob Fatu and Jimmy Uso defeating JC Mateo and Solo Sikoa. So that all happened on this past Friday Night SmackDown. Now we're going to look ahead to Saturday nights. We had the Saturday night. We're going to look back on Saturday Night Collision from AEW, as it was the 100th issue of Collision, in which 100th issue of Collision, in which they were celebrating 100 episodes. Opening match saw Kevin Knight with Mike Bailey in his corner, one half of the tag team known as in a 3-way match, had Kevin Knight of the team Jet Speed, Kevin Knight, and Mike Bailey, who was Speedball Mike Bailey, who was in his corner, defeating ROH Ring of Honor World Television Champion Nick Wayne, who had, of course, Kip Sabian and Mother Wayne in his corner, and Shelton Benjamin with MVP. Apparently, MVP was so upset about this loss that he told him, "Hey, look, Jet Speed, Patriarchy, you guys want a shot at the AEW World Tag Team title? Fine, you got it." So this led to them And then in a 6-man tag match, you had Mystico teaming with Conglomeration members Hologram and Mark Briscoe take on the Don Callis family members of Hechicero, RBG Vice of Trent Beretta and Rocky Romero. After 2.5 years away, Scorpio Sky made his return to AEW, defeating Max Caster in just under a minute, and another one of Max Caster's failed 5-minute challenges. This is almost becoming comedic. Willow Nightingale defeated Vipress in a one-on-one match, a women's match. FTR defeated Outrunners, basically bloodying up Turbo Floyd in the process. And the main event, not the main event. In an 8-woman tag team match, Ring of Honor World Women's Champion Athena teamed with Megan Bain, Julia Hart, and Thekla. They had Penelope Ford and Sky Blue in their corner to defeat the team of Queen Aminata, Tay J of Anna J and Ty Mello, and Thunder Rosa. The main event saw a number one contendership match for the AEW TNT title. Kyle Fletcher defeated Daniel Garcia. So now with that being all said and done, let's take a look now at what to look forward to on tonight's Monday Night Raw. It'll be the Go Home Raw. Heading into this weekend's Saturday night's main event. So on tonight's Saturday night's main event, a challenge that was made last week, Roxanne Perez, newly inducted member of Judgment Day with Raquel Rodriguez in our corner, will be taking on Kairi Sane, seeking revenge on Kairi Sane for putting Liv Morgan out of action. Jey Uso will try to yeet his way to another victory over Bronson Reed of Seth Rollins' group. Braun Breaker and Sami Zayn will do battle as well. The main event will see Seth Rollins taking on Penta in the main event. Now, looking ahead to this weekend, coming up on this Friday night. Anyway, look ahead to this weekend here. This Friday, coming up on July the 11th here, Ring of Honor will be holding its Super Card of Honor event in Arlington, Texas. More specifically, of course, more specifically from the Esports Stadium in Arlington. Signed for the event, Lee Moriarty will be defending the Ring of Honor Pure Championship against CMLL legend Blue Panther. In a match for the Ring of Honor World Tag Team Championships, the Infantry, who recently won a number one contendership match over Top Flight, Carly Bravo and Sean Dean, will be challenging Sammy Guevara and Dustin Rhodes, the Sons of Texas, for the Ring of Honor World Tag Team titles. Bandito defends the Ring of Honor World title against Konosuke Takeshita. Athena will be defending the Ring of Honor Women's World title against Thunder Rosa. So now that's all coming up on. That's all, of course, coming up on Ring of Honor. Now, as we get ready to look ahead to the AEW card for this weekend, All In, the big main event coming up this Saturday. All In Texas, coming from coming from the Globe Life Field, basically Texas Rangers ballpark in Arlington, Texas. You'll have a men's and women's casino gauntlet match in which the winners of those respective gauntlet matches will earn for the men, they'll earn a shot at the AEW world title, and the women will earn a shot at the women's world title. Already confirmed for the men's casino gauntlet match will be Mark Briscoe, Mystico, and MJF, and confirmed for the number one, getting the number one spot in the women's casino gauntlet match will be Chris Statlander. Now, Mark Briscoe earned the number one spot in the men's casino gauntlet, and MJF earned the number 2. So they have the strongest chances of winning if they can get them. In a match that is now for basically control of AEW to an extent, George Strickland and Will Ospreay will be taking on the Young Bucks, Matthew Nicholas Jackson, in which they were able to get the Young Bucks to put their EVP positions on the line. In a 3-way match for the AEW World Tag Team title, this is the thing we were just talking about a few minutes ago. The Hurt Syndicate of Shelton Benjamin and Bobby Lashley, with of course MJF and MVP in their corner, will be answering the challenges of Jet Speed, the Jet Kevin Knight and Speedball Mike Bailey, and the Patriarchy, in this case of Christian Cage and Nick Wayne. Then in the match for the AEW TNT title, Adam Cole will be defending against Kyle Fletcher, who, as we just said, won the number one contendership match, in a unification match to crown the first ever AEW Unified title. AEW International Champion Kenny Omega will be taking on Kazuchika Okada, who is the AEW Continental Champion, with the winner becoming the new AEW Unified Champion, first ever. In a match for the AEW Women's World title, Toni Storm defends against TBS champion Mercedes Moné. And then in a match for the AEW World title, the match that the stakes were just elevated this past Wednesday to make it a Texas death match, Jon Moxley will be defending the AEW World title against Hangman Adam Page. So now, hey, Fit Show, though. Thanks for dropping in. So now, and again, if you guys haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So with that being said, let's continue on here. And we do have some WWE events to go over. 3 of those, believe it or not. All right. So first off, coming up on Saturday the 12th, we of course have 2 big events. First off, it's NXT's Great American Bash from Atlanta, Georgia, from Center Stage Theater, which actually used to be the place, I believe, where they used to tape some of the WCW programming, believe it or not. Already signed for the main event. We'll see OFME defend the NXT title against Yoshiki Inamura. Sol Ruka defends the women's North American title against Izzy Dame. And in a tag team match, basically as a prelude to the following night's NXT Women's Championship. Fatal Influence. So you have Fallon Henley and NXT Women's Champion JC Jane taking on Jordan Grace and Blake Monroe. Of course, Jordan Grace and JC Jane will also be on the following night's Evolution. We'll get to that in a moment, of course. Then later on that night from Atlanta, later on that evening from the State Farm Arena live on NBC in Atlanta, Georgia, already signed for Saturday night's main event. Main event will see Gunther defend the WWE World Heavyweight title against Goldberg in what is said to be Goldberg's retirement match. Seth Rollins, Paul Heyman in his corner, will be taking on LA Knight. And then Randy Orton will be taking on Drew McIntyre. And then Sunday from the State Farm Arena, WWE will be holding its second ever all-female pay-per-view Evolution. First one is back in 2018. It will be on Netflix. Let's see. The show will open up with a battle royal in which the winner of the battle royal will receive either a shot at the WWE Women's title or the Women's World title at Clash in Paris, which is an upcoming event. Of course, already confirmed for that battle royal include Nikki Bella and Ivy Nile. In a no-hold-barred match, Naomi takes on Jade Cargill. In a fatal four-way match for the WWE Women's Tag Team title, the Judgment Day duo of Roxanne Perez and Raquel Rodriguez take on Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair, who recently won the number one contendership on SmackDown. Sol Ruca and Zarya. Sol Ruca apparently looking to try to be a belt collector, as she's also the NXT Women's NXT Women's North American Champion, as well as being the WWE Women's Speed Champion. And the Kabuki Warriors make their return together as Asuka and Kairi Sane will team up to try to win those titles. Then the the NXT Women's title will be on the line, as we mentioned, as JC Jane will be defending the NXT Women's title against Jordan Grace. In a triple threat match for the WWE Women's Intercontinental Championship, Becky Lynch will defend the title against Bayley and Lyra Valkyria. Tiffany Stratton is set to defend the WWE Women's title against Trish Stratus. And then in a match for the WWE Women's World title, Io Sky will be defending against Rhea Ripley. So that's all I got for the wrestling wrap-up. So now let's, with today being, of course, Monday, July the 7th, 2025, go ahead and take a look back at this day in Meech history. Let me just, so 50, 85, 2000, and 2020. All right, then. So here we go. So first off, I'm going to head all the way back to 1950, 75 years ago today. On this date, 75 years ago today. Oh, wait, no. On this date, 75 years ago today, the 20th issue of Marmaduke Mouse from Quality went on sale on this date back in 1950. It sold for 10 cents for 32 pages. So on this date, 75 years ago today, in 1950, the 20th issue of Marmaduke Mouse went on sale on newsstands from Quality Comics. So now, as we will go ahead and move on to the next piece in each history, as we move ahead to the year 1985, 40 years ago today. On this date, 40 years ago today, Tito Santana defeated Greg Valentine to become the new WWF Intercontinental Champion in Baltimore, Maryland. So at a house show in Baltimore, Maryland, Tito Santana defeated Greg Valentine to become and I believe it was his first reign as, actually, no, it might have been his second reign, actually. Second reign as WWF Intercontinental Champion. So on this date in Baltimore, Maryland, Tito Santana defeated Greg Valentine to become the WWE Intercontinental Champion. All right, so moving ahead to the year 2000, as soon as I grab that. On this date in the year 2000, 25 years ago today, as soon as I grab that. June Foray receives a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. On this date, 25 years ago today, the late great voice acting legend herself, June Foray, got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Of course, June Foray, known primarily for a role as Granny in Looney Tunes, Looney Tunes, Merry Melodies, all that. Of course, she lent her voice to a number of other characters, including Jokey Smurf and the Smurfs, as we talked about earlier. So on this date, 25 years ago today, she got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And moving on to the year 2020, as soon as I get that, of course. On this date in the year 2020, over in Japan, the following anime premiered on Japanese television as Muyo and Roji's Bureau of Supernatural Investigation. Season 2 of Muyo and Roji's Bureau of Supernatural Investigation from Studio Dean premiered on Japanese television, as well as DMM.futureworks W-Toon Studios Umayon. Both these series, second season of Studio Dean's Muyo and Roji's Bureau of Supernatural Investigation, and DMM.futureworks W-Toon Studios Umayon, both premiered on this date back in 2025 years ago today. Alrighty then, so with that, I thank everybody for being here. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. Of course, we'll be back here with more news tomorrow. And of course, this Sunday I'll be joined. Actually, I made a mistake last night. I said it was going to be the metal, but it wasn't the metal this week. Actually, it's going to be Apex from Apex Comics. Will be joining me this Sunday as we'll be going through comics that went on sale in June of 1940 from Archie Comics. So with that, I thank everybody for being here, and I hope to see everybody back here tomorrow. Bye.